ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ गणानां त्वा गणपतिगं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम्। ॐ श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यार्थं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुदेवो ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Okay, so today we are starting the Nyaya Sutras. The class we just did the introduction. So this class we'll enter into the first sutra. So there we are going to do another chanting. Yakshpada pravaro muninam shamay shastram jagato jagat kutarki agyana nivritti hetuhu karishyate tasmaya nibandha. So Akshapada pravaro muninam. So this text begins with a salutation to Akshapada or Gautam Muni. Akshapada, as we explained in the previous class also, feet having eyes, it denotes a logical connection between the feet and the eyes, both having come from the third tattva or Agni tattva. And so that Muni we bow down to, and this Shastra has been given to us by Gautam Muni or Akshapada. And what is the purpose of this Shastra? Kutark Agyana Nivritti Hetu. So Kutark, any wrong kind of arguments that are provided by people, and Agyan, or any kind of ignorance, for dispelling that, this Shastra has been put forward, or it has been expounded by Akshapada. So Karishyate Tasya Maya Nibandha. So for that we are starting this Shastra, right? So in this Shastra, this is basically the basis of all logic. Since this logic is used in all the Shastras, it forms the basis of the logical in every Darshan Shastra. So all the Darshan Shastras, as I have repeated time and again, connected, and they have very coherent of expression where everything in the Shastras complements each other. ऐसा नहीं है कि एक में compare. It's not that just one Shastra is complete in itself. So if Vedanta is something, it will follow the knowledge of the cat. It will follow the picture of the follow the karma theory from the karma Shastra, and similarly for Vedanta. So all of these, as you have seen earlier, also we did classes Tattva Bodh and Atma Bodh. So both of those classes we saw that there were certain rules of logic. Those rules of logic, they don't come per se from the Vedanta Shastra, from the Vedanta Sutras. Vedanta Sutra basically they enunciate or declare only the unity between the different Upanishadic statements or the Vedanta statements. But there is no process of logic, or there is no display of how you can uh, explain different categories. So while Vedanta deals with Atmagyan, this Sutra, it also means a lot of the categories that are being discussed in Vedanta, but here its view is basically to establish the logical process. सर से समझे कैसे उसको समझे and all the you process that last class also you uh, the processes by which is end. So uh, the process which consists of pratigya and igna. So pratigya in which solution is made, then the that is given, and an example is given. Uh, then upnaya, the conclusion, upnaya, the connection between the pratigya and the is established, and then the final conclusion. So Nyaya Sutras, they tell us about the process by which any proposition can be proved. So for that, now we go on to the first sutra, first one, which we'll just read here so that everyone have a look at the it vulnerable for those clubhouse, but for the if you shared the link, of the book, you can find online. So just read the first sutra. So the first sutra is here. It on Zoom. Prama, Prameya, संशय प्रयोजन दृष्टांत अवयवः तर्क निर्णय वाद जल्प वितंडा हित्वाभास छल जाति निग्रह स्थान तत्व ज्ञानात् निश्रेयस साधिगम. So in this, what is being said is there are 16 categories here being enumerated. I would advise all of you are going to follow this course towards to the end. You just write it down the book because all of these 16 categories then have sub branches. It's better if you take the first page of your book and you write down these 16 categories, and you can write the definitions also there. And then on the next page, you take the first category and then you branches for that. For every category there will be sub branches. So in this way you will be able to keep a reckoner or a connection between all the categories and their different branching out, right? So if you are looking at the 16 categories: praman, prameय, संशय, prayojan, दृष्टांत, सिद्धांत, अवयव, तर्क, निर्णय, वाद, जल्प, खंडा, हेत्वाभास, जाति, निग्रह स्थानानाम ज्ञानात् निश्रेयस साधिगम. So tattva jnana is not included in the categories. The categories end at nigrah sthananam. So up till categories. So of the 16 categories, this is the subject matter. This is the total subject Nyaya Sutras. And finally, in the end, what is being said? Tattva jnanat sadhigam. So in that, by the knowledge, tattva jnana, by the knowledge of these 16 categories, the knowledge of their essence, tattva is what? The knowledge that we use the Vedantic definition, that that whole object being discussed is the knowledge that Atma Brahmali, but it object categories, all of the categories. liberation of the but just knowledge of the 16 categories, we learn that everything of these categories is all in the visible world. And the visible world is dependent for existence on the observer. Observe the sole reality, the rest is just a dependent reality. And all these are also what we call changing with time and space. So due to this change, we are able to understand that they are all mithya or unreal. So that will come into more detail going to the second sutra. But basically, by establishing their changing nature and their unreal nature, we are able to move on to moksha, the true liberation, by not being trapped by their uh, uh, knowledge as being something of as knowledge of something permanent. All of these things of all the things in the world, but we can slowly understand that appearance is also some object might have a lifetime of 1 day, 2 days, some have a few years, some of thousand of comparison with the infinity, with in comparison with infinite, they all relative short shelf life. Once we understand that all of these are uh, mithya or unreal or of short-lived, you can say, becomes a source of nishreyas or the source of liberation, right? So what are these 16 categories? These will be explained in much detail as we go down the text, as we look into the text with more details, and in this way we'll be able to understand their nature a lot. But we have to understand that all of these categories will whatever detail we go in subdivisions, right? So each of these subdivisions will explain their nature, but right now we'll just have a look at what is the basic meaning of these categories. Just understand the essence of these categories, right? So pramana, first one is pramana. So praman is a means of knowledge, a means of inference, means of knowledge, how to know something, right? So in uh, the language of uh, means of knowledge, or if you have means, then means we call it as current, an instrument. It is an instrument of knowledge. So current, the definition of karana is sadhak tamamam. You can write this down, sadhak tamamam. So sadhak tamamam is what is the best instrument for doing a particular job. So we can use a lot of examples in daily life. Like if I say for writing, what is sadhak tamamam? What is the best instrument? So for writing, you need a hand, you need a pen, right? And you need consciousness to move the hand and so on. But what is the final one? That is the pen. Without pen, you cannot write, right? The hand, with the hand, you can do other jobs, but with pen, you can only write. So pen is the sadhak tamamam. Similarly, if we look at our sense organs, then our sense organs, what are our sense organs? The organs of knowledge or the gyanendriya, the five gyanendriyas that we have, those five gyanendriyas are uh, Shrotra, Twak, Chaksha, Chakshu, Rasna, Ghan. So Shrotra, the hearing power. Twak, that's touching or feeling power. Uh, Chakshu, the seeing power. Then Rasna, the tasting power. And Granaha, it is the Granaha is the hearing power, right? So all of these are different powers that exist within us. They are there. We can tell them by their effect. So any power we cannot directly see. Remember, always remember, any power we cannot see. What we are seeing, the eye is not the power. That is just what we call a place of expression of that power, right? It is called a golak in exact terminology. It is a golak. So this eye that you see is not just the seeing power. The seeing power or the indriya behind it is the actual power by which we can see. So when it does this action of seeing or perceiving something, then we know that the eye is there. So by karya anumeya is by its effect we can know that that thing exists, that shakti, that power exists. So this seeing power that we have, it is in a similar way, it is an instrument. It is an instrument of knowledge. उसको हम कहते हैं ज्ञान इंद्रिय. We call this a ज्ञान इंद्रिय. Okay, so when we are looking at these Gyan Indriyas, there are, as we can see, five organs of knowledge. पांचों ज्ञान इंद्रियां हमारी होती हैं. There are five organs of knowledge. So these are in a way a pramana, right? These are all pramanas. These are the ways of knowing a particular entity. So what is the pramana that can see the form of an object? The form of an object, that is by the eye alone. So eye can do that, right? Similarly, for hearing also, what is the power? The hearing power, what it can do? It can understand words, right? So hearing power can see different words. So that hearing power will let us know the sound behind any object. So all of these are different pramanas that we use for knowledge of an object, right? So pramana means of knowledge, right? So the instrument of knowledge, the instrument is, as we said, sadhak tamamam, the best instrument, and it's, if it produces some kind of knowledge, then it is called means of knowledge. So that is a pramana. So a karma indriya will not be a pramana. Karma indriya is not helping us know something. It is merely performing an action. It is an instrument of action. It is an instrument of action. But pramana will consist of those instruments that will produce knowledge within us, right? And in this we will have different examples later on. We'll see the different branchings out or the different parts of this, but that detail we'll get into later on. Similarly, prameya. Prameya also has many divisions. Prameya, the object to be known, right? So if you have to know a particular object, then that is called a prameya, the object to be known. So it can be any object in front of us, a book, a table, a chair, or it can be anything subjective. It can be a knowledge from a book which is teaching us something that is not seen in front of us, but is described by the person who wrote the book, right? So in this way, that is indirect knowledge. And similarly, there are other kinds of knowledge where perception occurs through meditation, or perception occurs through any other kind of focusing inwards. So these objects that are to be known, prameya, they are in two realms, we can say, basically two realms. One is the visible realm, pratyaksh, ekdam samne jo dikhta, whatever we can see clearly in front of us, whatever we can see clearly in front of us, that is uh, an object of direct knowledge. But there are others that is not a subject of direct knowledge, that knowledge comes from our shastras, right? So how karma theory works, how different devtas work, how how what is the source of heaven, and of course final the final knowledge, the knowledge of moksha, the knowledge of liberation, these are given by our shastras. So all that knowledge, even though it is not directly available for perception, it is proved by logic. It is proved by understanding. It is proved by examples in the visible world. So all these are categories that are available to us for proof. Shastra does not say something that cannot be understood in this world. It merely needs a guru or a person capable of interpreting them, because wrong interpretation can lead to many kinds of misconceptions or fallacies, right? So these we'll see also in this in the 16 categories. So pramana we've understood. Firstly, it is the means of knowledge. Prameya, the object to be known, right? So sanshay is something. Sanshay is basically a doubt, right? Sanshay, basically it is a doubt that exists in that realm of knowledge where something is known but the structure of that object is not very clearly known, right? So like we use the famous Vedantic example of a snake on a rope. So if we look in the dark or semi dark, we can say, then we will see the rope, but it will not be clear. It might appear to some person as a snake. It might. So what does that might mean? That might mean there is an element of doubt there. And secondly, there is an element of uh, what we call mithyatattvam. So there is an element of unreality in that, right? So an object can appear as something else. So that is sanchay. So to remove that doubt, to remove that sanchay, various processes are followed, and that is the method of establishing the where the correctness of a premise, the correctness of a theory. So that is what Nyaya also seeks to establish. Then finally, the prayojan. Why we do something? Motive. eh, The motive of an object. Now, what is the motive of doing something? So when we are talking about prayojan, we are basically talking about the how uh, we go about doing actions. Basically, pravritti, what we call, or the desire of ourselves to know something, do something, achieve something, and so on. That is a prayojan. The prayojan of any kind of knowledge also, it has different purposes. Like we have seen the knowledge of these 16 categories, tattva jnana nishreyasa adhigama. So by tattva jnana of these 16 categories, we achieve liberation, right? So even though that liberation is of an indirect nature, it follows a process which will be explained in the second sutra. But yes, of course, we reach that position. Every shastra, all the six darshan shastras, they provide a different path or method or way of reaching that position of liberation, right? So then we move on to drishtant, right? So if drishtant is basically example, an example you explain. So like we saw in the pratigya hetu, etc. So if we are seeing a hill where there is smoke there, huh? So we have to prove that that same thing is observed elsewhere, that where there is smoke, where there is fire. So there the example we saw was yatha pakshalayam, yatha pakshalayam. Like in the kitchen, we can see the fire and the smoke, they coexist, they exist together. While the fire is burning, the smoke is also there. So that is an example of, that is an example, drishtant, right? Drishtant is a very powerful technique used in Nyaya, and it is something that, some of the atheistic systems, like even Charvaka or even Bodh, where they don't believe in the existence of God, or they don't believe in the existence even of a soul reality. So what is their problem? They don't have an example, because for them everything is shanic, everything is momentary. So if anything momentary, that example is also momentary, and that example is in therefore non-existent. So in their case also, they can't prove, they don't have example, right? But of course, they use their examples in a different sense. So we are not criticizing or demoralizing or bringing down any system. Every system has their own approach to the truth. So that approach will decide whether there is that approach is fully valid, or it touches only about a part of the truth. That will always there. ऐसा कभी नहीं हो सकता कि कोई बिल्कुल ही ट्रुथ को छुए ना. It is not possible that any approach of any of the approaches of the major religions will not touch a part of the truth. But yes, they might contain portions of the truth which is not complete, right? So in this, when we are talking about a drishtant helps us in solidifying our approach to a truth, any proving of any proposition. If you have to prove something, our drishtant should be solid. It should be accepted by both parties who are arguing. जो दोनों आपस में बहस कर रहे हैं, whoever are arguing, they should they should accept the validity of a drishtant. Right? That is why in Atma Jnanam you will never find a fully proper drishtant. But still there are the drishtantas where you can have a close proximity of understanding, because there is nothing in the visible world that can compare with that infinite or that Atma, right? So in this Drishtanta part, we are basically here talking about our worldly experiences, that we have to remember, right? So this Nyaya will always talk about worldly experiences, what we experience in the visible world. And then the Siddhanta. The Siddhanta is the final theory, the thing that we say, thus it is so, you can say. ऐसा ही है, when we say Siddhanta, right? A Siddhanta has been established. Like so if we initially someone might have said the sun goes around the earth. So you can say how? Okay, I see it going around the earth every day. It rises in the east and sets in the west. But can you prove it? When you go about proving it, when you examine the data of the movement of the other planets around it, movement of the stars and everything, then the theory does not hold good. When you look at the seasons and you look at the changes in different phases of objects around on the sky during the day, then that theory does not hold good. So when you go by the proper theory, then you understand that it is not the sun that is going around the earth, it is the earth that is going around the sun. And that is the Siddhanta. Prithvi revolves around the sun. So that is the theory. That is the Siddhanta. So that is something that you can prove, that is provable, right? So using different methods, you can prove it. And then finally avyavaha. We have avyavaha, the parts of an argument. Every argument has different parts, right? So all of those parts they help in establishing an argument. So all those parts we have to use if we are able to go into a particular argument. Then we have tarka. Tarka is basically a debate, right? A correct form of debate where both parties are presenting certain aspects of an argument. Both will discuss, both will debate, and then finally the truth of it will be established. The truth has to be understood. So that tarkaha will have to be understood in that manner only, that it can somehow prove uh, one way or the other what both of the parties are trying to prove. So one might be proved wrong, other might be proved right, but that does not mean that they will be quarreling over each other or they will be unhappy with each other. Tarka is basically a civil way of establishing a proposition, a civil way of establishing and uh, validifying a proposition. So in like we have modern debates, we are given two people will argue about, let us say an example, whether there is life outside of this earth. So both will give examples, and then they will try to prove that there is a higher probability of this proposition, that there are other life forms, even though it has not been proved. So ultimately, both will go by their examples, and then some kind of consensus has to be reached, right? So that consensus is the basis of any tarka. Consensus is the basis of any tarka. Even if there might not be a definite consensus, both can say we both agree to disagree. You can both keep their propositions and keep the debate open. It is something that will be decided in the future. So that is a civil way of going about it, but there are other ways also. So tark, nirnaya is the final decision that we reach in a debate. It might be reached, it might not be reached. So then next is vadaha. Vadaha is basically argument where you are trying to win by all kinds of wrong or even illegal ways you use. So if you study modern logic, then you can see all those different logical fallacies. So where you have this argument at antiquitium, the argument to antiquity or tradition, then argument ad hominem, where you attack the person who is doing the debate by making him appear wrong. You make your debate appear, you make your argument appear right, even though it is wrong. Then argument ad ignorantium, argument to ignorance. So this is again a debating fallacy where you have to assume something is true simply because it has not been proven false. So that is not the correct way, right? Then there is an argument to logic. So where you call it a straw man argument, you put an argument which is invalid, but for using that same invalid argument, you try to prove the your own argument is valid. So in this way, there are so many of those. You can check them up on that. I'll not go to them because we will cover all this later also in this text. And in our text, there will be more categories than what you'll find in most of modern logic books, because Nyaya covers a very complete compendium of all the forms of debate, of all the fallacies, everything. Even the fifth chapter, some people say it is dealing with stupidities. No, it is not about stupidity. It is actually dealing about these mainly these logical fallacies, the wrong ways the people employ to win an argument, which we call in this technical language vada. So sorry, jalpa. So this sorry, vadaha. I'm sorry, I'm confusing. So vadaha, where you are trying to win an argument, right? So then finally we have jalpaha. So in jalpaha, where we have the position where this person who is doing this argument, he is not actually, he does not have a stand. He just wants to get into an argument to prove the other person wrong. If the other person will say one thing, he will say the opposite. So that jalpa always creates a lot of quarrels. It creates a lot of misconceptions, right? So basically, it is something that is these are all of the non-advisable things in a debate. Also, they are considered a part of these 16 components. So this Jalpaha will represent that thing. Basically, what you can call in uh, normal English language, you can say wrangling. Hmm. So wrangling is that. And then finally, next we come to Vitandaha. So Vitandaha is basically cavil. You are you have lost a debate, you are in on the wrong side of a debate, and yet you refuse to cave in. You don't want to accept your mistake. Uh, so that kind of position is taken up by some people, right? They never accept their mistake. They will keep on bringing in new arguments even though knowing that they have lost. So these three vad, jalpa, vitanda are negative forms of the previous category, that is tarkaha. Hmm. And then next is the hetvabhas. So what is Hetwabhas? Hetwabhas is Hetu Abhasa. Hetu is what? A cause. So you are giving a cause for a certain argument. You're giving a cause that how this argument is to be settled. But Hetwabhas is just an Abhasa. It is just an appearance of giving a cause. So in Hetwabhas, you are giving a cause, but that cause exactly does not fit into that argument. Right? So if I give an example, you are saying that atma is ananta, the this atma is infinite. What is the cause for that? You will give, you are saying because the all of the elements are ananta. Each of these elements, all the panch tattvas, they are ananta. So are they actually ananta? No, they are all they have a certain limit which is not visible to us in the normal plane, but yes, they are limited in their sense. So so if we are going for the five pancha tattvas, they have their limitations. That limitation is where it is in the limitation or limitation of that they are in this limited in the sphere of expression. uh, Visible jagat, vyakt jagat mein hi pancho tattva hai. So so all of these five elements are there only in the vyakt jagat. So that cannot be an argument. It is just a hetvavas, it is just the appearance of an argument. Then next is chal. Chal is using trickery. You are using uh, a method of an argument by which you are trying to fool the opponent. There is different ways of applying chala. So they lot of people use different kinds of arguments. We'll see more details. There are many different kinds of chal. How this is employed when we go into the text later on. I don't want to spoil the suspense right away by telling everything in the first sutra itself. And then next is jati. So jati, basically what jati is, something that establishes the limiting factors of an argument. So if you look at the jati of any object in the universe, every object has a jati. It has a certain sphere which sphere of definitions which define it, right? So if you are defining a cow, so what is a cow? It is an animal. It has four legs. It is basically usually white in color or maybe some spots in between, and so on. So all these are defining conditions that separate the cow from other animals or from anything else in creation, right? So that defines jati. So that jati also, there are in fact we look for it in the 20 in the fifth chapter again. There are 24 kinds of jati. So all of these are also used to establish the validity of an argument, where the defining characteristics of any argument are separated from those that don't define it. So in this way, the jati of any argument is defined, and it is thus proved. So that is how we go about jati. Then nigraha sthanana. What is nigraha? Nigraha basically is a word. It's a Sanskrit word that signifies to restrain or bind or tie down something. So you are tying down all your argument into a tight sphere, all your arguments into a tight sphere by which that object is defined. So nigraha sthanana, a sthan, a space, a place. So you are putting all your arguments into one plate, and you are defining an object, and you are finally able to go into that mm, category where you are able to establish your argument as correct. So that is the nigraha sthanana. That is the final conclusion of an argument. Some of the textbooks, they give the definition of nigrasthana as occasion for review. That is not an exact translation. A more apt translation is how you can give an give a more accurate understanding of any category. Hmm. So this by tattva jnana nishreya adhigamaha. So by knowledge of these categories, nishreyas is reached. So how is that nishreyas is reached? Therefore, that we will go into the second sutra, right? So this one I'm taking in short because we'll be explaining more in the later sutras. This one we'll just hold on here. So I'll just go on to the next sutra. Second sutra. Second sutra says Dukkha Janma Pravritti Dosh Mithya Jnananat Uttar Upaye Tad Anantarat अपयाद अपवर्ग दुख जन्म प्रवृत्ति दोष मिथ्या ज्ञानानाम उत्तर उपाये तदनंतर अपायाद अपवर्ग. So dukh, pain, janma, birth, pravritti, activity or proclivity towards action, then dosh, faults, mithya jnananam or misimpression, misapprehension, wrong knowledge, uttar upaya, on successive annihilation or removal of these in the reverse order, uh, tad anantara apvargah. So there follows apvargah or release. So we saw that in the previous sutra also. The word there used was nishreyas, right? So nishreyas is what? Nishreyas is shreya is what we do, something that we do that will be beneficial for us, right? So that is shreya. So another similar word for this is preya, but actually they are both different. So preya is something that you like to do. So like you like to eat sugar, so that is prayer for you. It is priya to you. You like having sugar. But then, is it shreya for you? If you have sugar, if you have a problem of sugar, or if your sugar levels rise very fast, then you will have to avoid sugar, right? So it is not shreya for you. Priya and shreya, that is the difference. So all the things that in the world, all the experiences that we have in the world, they have these two categories. They might be either priya or shreya. They might be something we like to do, but everything we like to do might not be beneficial for us. It might also be harmful. Of course, some things we like to do will be beneficial for us. It is not always the case. So that shreya is something that is beneficial for us. Now, whatever is beneficial for us, we tend to look for it in the sense of worldly experiences, right? So Nishreyas is reaching that stage where you are not looking at anything from the point of benefit or gain or loss. You are not looking at, because you have reached that higher stage, moksha, where the attainment or non-attainment of objects is not of a problem, not uh, important to you. Hmm. So Nishreyas is basically moksha, the stage of reaching the highest. So we say that any object does not have the capacity to bind us. So for an object, like we say there is a diamond. So for a person who has attained that diamond, what will be, that person will be happy. So he is in the state of happiness. Then secondly is the person who has not obtained. So he will be sad that I don't have this diamond. I could have attained this diamond. It was lying there, but someone found it before me, and so on. Right? So these are the two categories. But there is the third category. The person for whom that diamond is not important. That diamond is not at all important. He is beyond the need of those objects. Right? I'm talking about diamond. It may be some other object, right? So there is this story of Vidyaranya Swamiji. So what happened was, in his kingdom, once what happened was, there were many Islamic looters who had looted many temples. So when they had looted those temples, what would they do is that they would collect all the gold from those temples, and then they would melt it, and then they would mold it into bricks, and they would mold it into bricks, and then they would carry these out of the kingdom. So when they carried these out of the kingdom, what happened was, at one time, one of these bricks that was being carried out, it fell out of that caravan or that animal who was carrying it, it fell out of the sack and it fell onto the ground. Then what happened was, uh, one person who was none other than uh, he was a very wise person, a sadhu. So he just picked up that gold brick, and then he found another brick, the second brick, and taking both of these, a normal brick and the gold brick, he took it and he went for his morning ablutions, what we call clearing of his tummy. Right? So he placed those both those bricks on the ground. He did his job, and in the meanwhile, the king's soldiers, they came that way, and they saw that golden brick. That person was using that brick, so they waited for this guy to see what he would do. So after finishing his job, he went off. He left both those bricks there and went away. And they were surprised what kind of person he is. He didn't even care for the brick. So anyway, they did mind. They took the brick, they took it out, and they washed it nicely, cleaned it up. So it is fit for taking to their back to their kingdom. And they took it back to their king, who was at that time Vidyaranya Swami. He is a writer of many books on Vedanta, very famous personality. Right? So when this brick was brought back, then he said the king was surprised that this kind of thing is happening in his kingdom. And when they told him the story of this, then he said, what have you done? You go back and you get that man who was using this brick as a support only, for whom the brick has no importance. And they searched and searched and searched, and they finally brought him back. And when they brought him, then the king said that actually what you brought back is not the gold. The gold is this person for whom this thing has no value. His character is the real gold. Right? So that is the essence of being unattached to the objects of the world. So when we are unattached to the objects of the world, then only we are in a state of true liberation. So that word that we are talking about, nishreyasa, it signifies that state. It signifies the state of being unattached to the object of this world. And finally, this apvargaha also is the same word, apvarga. We are in the state of release or moksha or freedom. Apvargaha. So how does this apvargaha come in? We have to go in the reverse order, right? We look at this verse in the reverse order, because we are saying uttar upay. So how is, if you remember what we started with the first sutra, the first sutra is talking about the different categories, right? It is talking about the 16 categories. So the knowledge of those 16 categories, what will happen? You look at the last word here, mithya gyan. We will establish that all of these categories are all mithya. They are of the realm of temporary knowledge. So all of these praman, pramay, sanchay, prayojan, drishtan, and so on, right up to the nigrah sthananam, all these 16 categories, they talk about objects of the world. And all of the objects of the world, as we said earlier also, it has a short or a definite shelf life. एक छोटी उनकी जिंदगी होती है. They have a very small shelf life, and in that shelf life, these objects will come and go, come and go. So we will look at a certain concept in Nyaya later on also, but basically if we can use that concept here, what does it say? An object, before it came into existence, if it has come into existence for a short while, right, like this body, it has come into existence for a short while. So it started existing at the time of birth. So before birth, this object does not exist. So that, what is that state called? It is called pragabhav. It is called pragabhav. Before birth, this body does not exist. Similarly, when we say about the death or the decay or the final merging of this body into the five elements, right? So this means that the body will not exist after death. That is called pradvansha bhav. Uh, After the death of the body, it will no longer exist, right? So in between, what happened? In between, does it exist? It means it between also does not exist, because in between what happens? We are merely a conglomeration of elements. This body is merely a conglomeration of elements. The body never existed, just the elements came together in a certain fashion, and then they went back into their original source. So it came from the five elements and went back into the five elements. So this whole body is in fact what we call, the use the term mithya, something that has praga bhav or prior non-existence, and something that has pradvansa bhav or post non-existence. Then in between also its existence is merely an appearance, mithya. It is not real, right? So we establish this same thing for all the categories of the world, all the objects of the world, mithya. They are all mithya. So once we understand that they are all mithya, then what is the previous word to this? Pravritti dosha. The fault of uh, desiring something, or uh, acting for something, or wanting to do something, or doing actions to attain something. Why will I need to attain something if this system, that object is not real, if it will go away after a certain time, if it has no purpose to serve, right? So that pravritti dosh will go away. Once I understand that the object is mithya, that my desire to run after the objects of the world, my desire to run after the objects of the world will go away. So once that desire is gone away, what is the previous word? Janmaha. Janmaha. So Janmaha is birth and rebirth. Why does birth happen? Because of our pravritti. Because we have unfinished or unfulfilled desires. So all of these unfinished and unfulfilled desires, they are the cause of our coming back to this earth again and again, of our having multiple births and rebirths. So all of these mirths and rebirths are because of that, starting with that mithya gyan and pravritti dosh. They are the cause of our all the problems of the world. So if I don't have any cause or any desire left in me, any reason for working towards something or desiring something, then janma will also not come. So I will not have, I will move out of the cycle of birth and rebirth. And then that dukkha, or which is caused by birth, that will also go away. The first word, you look at the first word, dukkha. So dukkha janma pravritti dosha mithya jnanana uttarat uttarupaye tad anantar apayad apavarga. So how does release or moksha or liberation come about? It comes from the knowledge of the 16 categories. Once the 16 categories are known and their nature is known to be temporal or temporary, then we understand successively that there is no point in running after the objects of the world. So pravritti dosha goes away. Once pravritti dosha goes away, then janma also will go away. And then once janma is gone away, then dukkha also will go away. All our sadness or sorrow will also go away. Because anything in the world that we experience, even if it might appear as joy, it will turn to sorrow in a short time, in due time, right? Any object that we attain, the joy of it is short lived. After some time it will go away. The same person that we desire at certain point of time, after some time that person will also not appear desirable to us. it the stages of that desire, even if it might not completely get finished, but there will be ups and downs in that stage of desire. So in this way, that pravritti of ours will go away. Our tendency to gain multiple rebirths will go away. And once we are outside the cycle of birth and rebirth, then we are in the state of release or moksha. Because once I am not entering into this world for attaining any desires, then I attain moksha. So this Shastra also, this Nyaya Sutra also is showing us an alternate way of attaining that state of moksha or that state of release, where we can go to the final state of release and not be bound by the objects of the world, by understanding these 16 categories, right? But to understand more about the nature of the 16 categories, we have to go into the next sutra. So all of these sutras will successively define these 16 categories. And in there are five parts of the Nyaya Sutras. You can say five books. So the first part, or the first book, has again two subparts, but that contains basically the enumeration of categories, these categories and their sub branches. And after that, in the next four books, it will be discussed about the nature of these categories. And once the nature is understood, then we can go to our final stage, that of moksha. So all of these categories we are going to move into very soon in the next class. I think we'll wind up for today's time almost 5 o'clock. So we'll finish today's class, and this we shall continue the Nyaya Sutras, or the system of Indian logic. System of Indian logic. This we shall continue in the next class. I hope everything was clear. And if anyone wants to ask any questions, then they can do so.
So we have two questions in the chat.
Okay.
One is, what is the difference between Nyaya Sutras and Dharma
And Dharma.
Shastra?
Okay. So basically, Nyaya Sutra, there is only one Nyaya Sutra, but there are different Dharma Shastras. So, what is Nyaya Sutra? It is basically prescribing a system of logic. Hmm. So, it is a system of logic that is by which we are able to establish the validity of any theory. Validity of any theory. But Dharma Shastra, basically, what is Dharma? Dharma is how we should behave in the world, right? Or in a more deeper sense, I can go into Dharma for multiple classes, but if you take it in short, then dharma is basically the essential nature of something. Essential nature of something. So what when we understand the essential nature of something, then we understand that how that object behaves, how that object interacts in its transactions with the world. That might be a conscious object, it might be a jada, or an unconscious object. So dharma shastras basically prescribe the mode of living for us, right? So Apastamba Shastra, Gautam, Nyaya Sutras, all of these, there are multiple Shastras. Then there are the Smritis, Manu Smritis, and all. They are all Dharma Shastras. They prescribe modes of living, and they, their method changes with time. There are different ways of living at different times, right? So something that was some Dharma Shastra that was applicable in an older age, it will not be applicable today. Today's life will change, and so in this way you will understand by reading any dharma shastra what you, but their core essence is same. You can apply the principle as such to any time. But the actual application might vary, right? So like in those older times, anyone who deviated from dharma, the punishments were very severe. Hmm. It was severe for us. It was there was a punishment for a shudra, but the punishment was highest for the brahman. Why? Because he knew logic, he knew dharma, and yet he committed that mistake. So Brahmana was the one to be the most highly punished one. So, so Dharma Shastra will, they gave us not just punishments, but how we have to live our life, how to live life in an enriching manner, how to live life in cohesion with the whole universe around us. कैसे हम प्रकृति के साथ मिलके चले, how we live in cohesion with the whole of this creation. Once we learn that, our own life becomes easier, and the life of others around also becomes easier. That is the purpose of a Dharma Shastra. And Rahul asked about what happens to Atma when rebirth stops. So basically, this is the topic for Vedanta. We did it in Atma Bodh also. So there is nothing that is happening. Atma is always there, always present. So when rebirth stops, basically what you are talking about is two stages of perception of Atma. Atma as such is infinite, not bound by any condition. But when that Atma itself takes on delusion of being limited, then it becomes what we call Jivatma. Jivatma, right? So that Jivatma is the one that is thinking that rebirth is happening, but rebirth never happens. It is like the sky. You can divide it into different portions mentally. You can keep a pot, and that pot space you can say is separate, and then you can keep another vessel like a jug or a small glass, and you can say the space in the glass is small, the space in the pot is larger. But is it a different space? No, it never was different. It is always the same space. Similarly, the Jivatma also was always Atma. When it is deluded by ignorance, it tends to limit itself. It tends to think that it is unlimited, and it tends to then get trapped in the cycle of birth and rebirth. Uh, So, what is happening? What is taking the birth and rebirth? Where are the misconceptions? They are actually in the mind, Sukshma Shariram. So, in that Sukshma Shariram also, that uh, thing is there. Okay, Rahul wants to say something.
Yeah, thanks for the explanation, Yogesh ji. So I have like two more questions.
Okay.
Based on the one thing is you said you're talking about Vedanta, right? Advaita Vedanta, which has only one Atman. So how can
Hmm.
So if and that Atman is same as Paramatman, right? So how can Paramatma get into delusion? That I don't understand.
The Paramatma is never into delusion. Paramatma is never getting into delusion, right? So, what is Paramatma? There is you can say one Atma, the total, the infinite Atma, and that Atma again. I think we are digressing going to Vedanta, but okay, we'll continue this. When we are talking about the Jivatma, it is the delusion of that of a Jivatma or a particular Sukshma Shariram into thinking that it is limited, right? So when it is limited, what will happen? What will happen is it will need a mode of expression or a mode for where it can live out its karmas, right? It will not need a mode of
No, but
expression.
Yogesh ji,
Yeah.
that Sukshma
Hmm.
Sharira itself can't come into existence without the Paramatma, right? The Upadana Karana and the Nimitta Karana is the Paramatma itself. So why
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Paramatma created that
Definitely,
Sukshma
definitely.
Sharira?
If you understand it from a logical perspective, then what you have to understand is an infinite is it cannot exist without all finites. Huh? It has to have all the finites also within itself, even though it be in the form of mithya, even if it be in the form of an appearance, right? So when we are talking about the Paramatma is basically giving a sphere of expression for all the jivatmas. He is not under delusion. Paramatma is not under delusion. He is merely allowing all the jivatmas to live out their delusion. He is the creator. He is the one who is providing the all the objects for that. So just like in a dream, the jivatma can have create a different world for himself, a whole world of himself in which there are millions of objects. But who are those objects? It is that jivatma itself. The objects do not exist separate from me. The objects in the dream are inseparable from me. Similarly, for the Paramatma, we are also like ideas or a dream in the mind of Paramatma. All the Jivatmas are like ideas or objects in that Paramatma's mind. You can say it in a dream way, or you can say it in the form of an idea. So
So
all
it's if there an
yeah.
idea, then the Paramatma must have made a conscious choice to create this Jivatma, right? So
No,
that
no,
means
it
the
is not
ignorance
not
has
a
to be
conscious.
kept by
No,
him.
how can it be a conscious choice? No, look, there is something that is expressed by Swarupaha, and then there is something that is expressed by what you call choice, right? So that choice is when Paramatma wants to make all those Jivatmas and he wants to give that expression. No, he does not. They exist within him as an expression of his infinity. All different kinds of Jivatmas exist within the Paramatma himself, and he gives them a sphere to act out their lives, whatever their delusion. And thus, whenever whatever the jivatmas are there, he will give them all a sphere where they can act out their life. He is not deluded, or Paramatma is not someone who is creating something. So basically, what is an idea? An idea is an ideation where something is it has an experience of, has an appearance of existing, right? Mithya. So that is where you have to understand this whole concept for Atma, Paramatma, and Jivatma. Right. So in a way, that Paramatma is also mithya, because that Paramatma also is basically an expression of that very same Atma in the form of a ruler or a maintainer of this world. The Atma never goes into parts. If you're looking into the Advaita, if you go into the Vedic, we'll have to go a bit differently. Proper Vedic system, you have to go a bit differently. But anyway, whichever way you look at it, basically, if you want to go for the Mithya perspective, then you have to accept that all of these are appearances. And so, because these are appearances, then uh, basically all jivatmas are there in potential form. According to the law of the Veda, according to the law of rhythm or the rhythm of nature, they all are given a certain time of manifestation, a plane of manifestation, a place of manifestation. So, Desha, Kala, Vastu. They are all given all of these three potentialities. And so, all jivatmas cannot exist at the same time. They will exist in what we call in the realm of Kala, in the realm of time. And thus, all of these, some of